Hi guys, this is Allison from Alley Cat Creations. How are you? Please don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you're so prompted to do so. And if you get anything from my work, a Connect the Dawn Epiphany, a Mind Explosion, a new book to read, a new author to explore, artwork to create. I'm proud of myself with that one still. Still, please consider supporting that work. All the links are at the bottom of the description. 3D memberships is a really great way to help me out on this channel. You get channel member only content, and I am like trying to brainstorm a lot of things right now for channel members. So if you're interested, become a member. And I also have free giveaways every month. I have a raffle, and each channel member gets a free entry into those raffles I do. Here's new patriotic skull. Patriotic skull. AlleyCatCreations211.com is where you can find many of these creations. I am never going to sell this one, by the way. This is extremely heavy. Two-sided heart. This is also two-sided, but I did put background colors. I make these, but I also do gem skulls. This one is fixed. It's not 100% the way I want it, but we got patriotic skulls. I do business card holders, but I also do, I need 308 shells, anybody? Gems, pyramids. Look at all the pyramids behind me. I make everything handmade, all of it. So if you're interested in any of my pyramids or you would like something customized for you, please reach out to me via email. I do everything privately. Cheers to the coffee. Need it. Hi. Hi, hi. The voice of Isis. So I was going to do a Blavatsky read. Upstairs. Gotta do the voice of Isis today. Okay, cool. I will be live tomorrow for Friday Night Live. Going over the energies, going over what's going on. Um, all that fun stuff. So please join me tomorrow. Probably 4 Central, 5 Eastern. We'll see what happens. I don't know all the time. Now that I am out of work for this summer, um, I'm applying to jobs left and right. I'm freaking out, but I'm not trying to emote that. I don't know what goes on, so I'm just going with the flow of the now moment. How's that? I have a hole in my sock and it's really annoying. Sorry, guys. Okay. The Voice of Isis, Chapter 20, The Memory of Past Lives. Before I even begin this reading, a lot has come into, since this was written, a lot of quantum mechanics has been hitting our purview. Tobacco, folks. I would do nicotine patches, but I can't afford that. Um, I don't necessarily, in my perception of reality in the third dimensional space, I don't perceive time the way others do, linearly. Our brains conceive of the past, of the present, and of an unknown future. We already lived the past, but for me, if you go and learn what collapsing the wave function is and collapsing realities and time leaps and time quantum jumps, and we hear a lot of spiritual people talking about the time jumping and the timelines. I talk about them all the time. Time is simultaneous. There is no such thing. It's an illusion here in 3D, but our brains conceive it. Obviously, there's light, there's darkness, there's duality here. So I don't perceive past, I perceive other delineations of time, space, meaning a different potentiality happening in another dimensional density space. So my 10-year-old self is not the now person that is sitting before you. It has occurred in another timeline, in another destination, in another dimensional space. If we can look at it as jumping back or forth. But for those of you who I don't want to lose, well, I know not everybody's there where my mind is at, and that's okay. I'm not asking you to. It's not easy. We're gonna read the memory of past lives. It shall be interesting, and I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of Blavatsky in this. Quote, both thou and I pass through many births. Mine are known unto me, but thou knowest not of thine. End quote. The Bhagavad Gita. Quote, tell him, O aspirant, that true devotion may bring him back the knowledge, that knowledge which was his in former births. End quote. The Voice of Silence, Blavatsky. Fragment 2. The memory of past lives is given not for amusement, nor to satisfy vain curiosity, but to incalculate a needed lesson. As we stated in the chapter on karma, the destiny of each soul is ultimately to take its proper place in the divine plan. While the soul may spend many lives in perfecting its powers and working out minor karma, still at certain cycles, usually every 7th life, the destiny of the soul will be its main task, retarded or accelerated according to the karma to be worked out. Just as the 7th wave of the sea rises higher on the shore than the other 6. When a person is ready to take a decided step in his work of destiny, he must see what he has accomplished toward it in the past, how to avoid the mistakes and side issues that led him astray in former lives. He may not remember all the details, but step by step, as he needs them, the main lessons will be revealed to him. If he is about to repeat a previous blunder, the memory of it will be given him, often in a dream or a vision. And if he is not carried away by the mere remembering or does not push it aside as a fantasy or delusion, and if he sincerely desires light and help and is striving to follow his intuitions, he will see the lesson and understand its application to his present condition. There is no chance remembering. All follows an exact law. It comes when the higher self sees that the personality is ready. When the physical brain has been trained to vibrate to some extent in response to the will of the higher self. Many ask, why is not the memory of past lives more common? There is a deep reason for this. In our evolution, we have passed through many sad and embittering experiences, which, if remembered, would so depress our spirits, so discourage and hamper us, that we would make little progress. Also, did we remember who we were and who our present companions were, In many cases, we would find it so hard to forgive the injuries, so hard to forget the troubles we had passed through in connection with them, that our spiritual growth would be retarded. Since the law, acting as karma, demands perfect compensation or adjustment, one great object in each life is to readjust the mistakes of the past. When an opportunity to do so comes to us in this life, if we could remember all that had passed, it would be far harder to love your enemies, do good to them which hate you, bless them that curse you, and pray for them which despitefully use you. Hence, it is in love and wisdom that the knowledge of past lives is withheld. Very interesting and so true. There are a few of us who can remember reasonings on why certain people are embarked on our lives in this vehicle. I know that my prior relationships with men, 98% of them are all karmic and have had extreme lessons and purposes that we both needed to clear up in this life. Your parents, your family, all of that holds so true. And just like some people want to say, I can't recall this or that, it's because your body is not ready for that pain and suffering. I can't imagine if I was abducted by aliens or had very, very traumatic experiences that my subconscious is like, well, not in this lifetime, honey, because I don't know. You might not need this life to know about those things. So it's just something to keep in mind, and I so hard align with this full statement. Many think that could they remember who they were in the past, it would be all joy and wonder. But in the majority of cases, it would be a bitter disappointment and a sad, depressing remembering. Therefore, we will never be permitted to remember our past lives until we had advanced beyond the point where the griefs, the ills, and the unkindness done us can affect us, make us worry or become discouraged, and thus retard our progress. We will not remember until we have gained that poise, which nothing can disturb, until we have become centered in the thought that to manifest divine love is all there is worth striving for. Most souls find the memory of the trials and sorrows of one life as much as the personality can bear. Therefore, the complete remembrance of all it had endured in its many lives would tend to crush it. It is memory that haunts, that drives to insanity. No one day can hold enough sorrow to dishearten utterly the personality. It is the accumulated burden that overwhelms. A most important lesson to learn is to put from you all that is past. Live in the present. Let the dead past bury its dead until the soul has learned that what is past is registered within the real self as a lesson learned, a needed experience gained, and can let it go and not be crushed by its memory until the personality shows its strength of character by not brooding over mistakes, until it has exemplified the stability in its present life. Its Heavenly Father in loving mercy draws a veil over the memory of previous incarnations. When it can bear without flinching or shrinking the memory of sorrows of one life, it will be ready to bear a more extended memory. Another reason why we do not remember is that at each incarnation, the soul clothes itself in a new body, the brain cells of which have never responded to the past conditions. And only when the brain is capable of responding to the memories stored up in the higher self can that memory be impressed upon the walking consciousness. In other words, the personality per se cannot remember the past because it has experienced but the present life. Another reason is that many of our lives have been so commonplace or trivial that they have registered little of value in the real self. hence have little of importance to remember. For out of each life, it only those experiences and those lessons which have made for a soul growth that it immortalized by being registered in the real self. Only good is immortal, evil is but transitory. The memory of a past life is often awakened by reading about or seeing the picture of some historical character. This arouses a consciousness of having lived at that time or in that place, or perhaps that the reader was himself the character mentioned. This is apt to give rise to ridicule from many upon whom the memory of the past lives is drawing seem never to have been anything but kings and queens or notable characters in history. There is a reason for this, for, like most mistakes, it is rather a misunderstanding or misapplication of remembrance than a deliberate attempt to deceive. It is a result of ignorance of the law. In such a case, the probability is that the person did live at the period remembered and perhaps took a prominent part in the events enacted, but he was not necessarily the principal character. The feeling of a peculiar sympathy or aversion that one feels in such a case is precisely what he felt at the time of the event. In the past, he may have been deeply invested in the character under consideration and fond of imaging himself in that place. Thus, when the attention is turned to those old times, it awakens the old currents of feeling, and he thinks he actually was what in the past he had wished to be. Often there is another explanation. The noted personage may have stood out as the keynote of his time, and the circumstances that produced his eminence were lessons that many other souls learned. In fact, the leading character enacted the drama for all the lesser personalities belonging to the same group, and all learned the lesson through the one. That is so important. That is so important! Ding, 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 chicken winner dinner, chicken winner dinner. Yeshua being one of many. The great body of humanity is like the physical body, composed of cells and organs, each with its center of focus nucleus, which takes up impressions and transmits them to all the atoms composing the center or organ. The hand learns to execute a certain movement, and every cell of each finger retains the impress or latent memory of its share in that movement. So the cells of every organ learn their lesson not so much as separate cells, but altogether as an organ, a hand, a foot, a heart, a head, etc. For example, through the action of Abraham Lincoln, who the whole nation learned that slavery should be and could be abolished, and the lesson was impressed more so, less deeply on each soul according to its sympathy or activity in the matter, but only Abraham Lincoln actually freed the slaves. He could not have done this, however, without the aid of thought force of the nation. He was an executor of the will of those who thought freedom. Very interesting thought there. Every character in history had many persons who belonged to the same group, to the same nation, who were carried along in evolution by the same current, who learned by the failure or profited by the success of that character. As the soul at first remembers only the most important events, personages, and lessons impressed upon its consciousness, when that memory begins to be awakened, it is natural for it to think it was a central figure. Many psychics receive messages when they interpret to mean that they were the Virgin Mother, St. John, John the Baptist, Elijah, Moses, or some other noted Bible character, and find to their dismay that many others have been told the same. We're fractalized, by the way, so you could actually be a fractal of those entities. You're scattered across the winds. Since they are unable to conceive how all could be and have been the one character, Much confusion and loss of faith in their guidance results. The true explanation is that all such personages were types or expressions of some of the cosmic rays' differing phases of experience through their father had passed in his evolution. When a disciple is told, for instance, that she was the Virgin Mary, it means that she belongs to that expression of the Father ray. Yes, was emanated and started on her earthly evolution during the period when the Father was correlating that with the Virgin Mother principle, when he was experiencing the lessons of the Great Mother Isis, and so on through the whole list of characters. Yes! Fractals! There are hundreds who are sure they were Mary, Queen of Scots, hundreds who were Martin Luther, Julius Caesar, Cleopatra, Helen of Troy, etc. If they understood the law, however, it would be quite easy to determine whether or not they were great personages whose names are given. A careful study of the character giving due consideration to the three stream of evolution, physical, mental, and spiritual, will readily determine this. Study their mistakes and successes and try to calculate what would be needed according to the law of compensation, karma, to overcome the mistakes or reap the rewards. Study their mentality and your own, and know well there is no retrogression. There are ups and downs that many seem like retrogression, but they are like the ups and downs of a gravity railway. The downs are always above the level of the starting point. A person of historical prominence may at this time be incarnated in a very lowly station, but he will still have the same characteristics that made him great. He may be placed in a lowly station to learn lessons of patience and humility, but his character will still be great, and the important lesson learned in the prominent life will be indelibly impressed upon his present personality. If he were the central figure of the group, either for good or evil, he will always be a central figure, no matter in what walk of life he may incarnate. And Abraham Lincoln might incarnate as a plowboy, sorry, there's my dyslexia, a plowboy where conditions made education and culture almost impossible. But he will always have the ability of a Lincoln to master conditions. Many declare that they find it impossible to live out their true selves, but the inner development will always manifest no matter what the environment. If a soul fails to demonstrate that it is spiritually advanced, it simply means that it has not obtained to or created the state in desires to manifest. The pilgrim of the soul is like an earthly journey. We may see the distant goal, yet may have many sad experiences and much weary travel ere we reach it. If one is absorbed in petty cares to the exclusion of higher aims, it means that he has not outgrown petty conditions. For if he had, he would find time to follow the higher leadings and manifest them in his life. Abraham Lincoln found time to study law while splitting rails. Isaac Waite discovered the force of steam while apparently absorbed in the petty care of minding the baby. Although environment does modify the expression, still the real inner development will always manifest no matter what the environment. Accomplishment in spite of difficulties is the best proof of inner development and strength, for difficulties only spur us on to express the powers we have won. The general rule is that after one has cultivated his mental faculties and developed his brain to a higher degree, he passes through an incarnation devoid of all chance for education. Sorry. This is firstly to give him an opportunity to develop his heart qualities, and secondly to prove how much of the former culture he has really assimilated. No one can prove his character unless he is forced to depend on his real inner powers. Hence, no matter what the gain has been in the past, whether toward physical, intellectual, or spiritual perfection, he must of necessity pass an incarnation where all outward help toward the thing obtained are lacking, that he may prove himself. When one is told that in the present he was some great personage, it is wise to look up the history and customs of the time indicated and search for any glaring discrepancies between his own character and the character of the person under consideration. If discrepancies are found, they indicate error somewhere. For example, if a woman is told that she was an Egyptian priestess, or if a man is told he was beheaded while king of Egypt, a glance at history will show that the Egyptians carefully excluded women from participating in the mysteries. Hence, there were no Egyptian priestesses. History will also show that the Egyptians had a superstitious horror of any sort of mutilation of the body. This was inculcated by the fundamental tenets of their religion. Under no circumstances was a king or even a person of common social rank mutilated, either before or after death. The worst possible punishment for the lowest crime and criminal was the cutting off of his ears. Therefore, this would most convincingly point to an error in such a message. In this instance, we find that Egypt was overrun with foreigners, much as it is at the present time. Some of them were kings and queens who followed the customs and religions of their own country. There were also numerous cities whose names have long been lost to history, which, while paying tribute to Egypt and inhabited largely by Egyptians, nevertheless followed their own customs. Thus, a woman might have been a priestess or a king, might have been beheaded while in Egypt, yet not be Egyptians. This will show how easily psychic messages can be confused and how absurd it makes one to repeat them without verifying them. While such discrepancies do not always mean that the one given the information was misled him, yet under such circumstances, a careful investigation of the message and a consideration of its source is advisable. It may be, however, that he has misinterpreted the message. His brain may have given it a twist in accord with the personal bias. A careful study of history, together with a sincere prayer for light and help, will generally straighten the matter out. It has become the custom for untrained or pseudo-psychics to flatter their friends or sitters by telling them they were great persons in the past. In this connection, it is a good plan never to believe such tales unless confirmed by your own soul or by history. For almost under the law probability of common sense. The whole object of rebirth is for each soul to obtain all-around soul perfection, learn all the lessons life can teach, and thus be prepared to do its work in the grand plan. Even if it were possible for a man to gain all knowledge and have all experience in one life, nevertheless, the stupendous task of evolution from an atom to a god would require incalculable eons. Comparing our life period to a day, as well might we expect a child to acquire the experience and wisdom of a lifetime between sunrise and sunset. If such a prodigy were possible, evolution would be unsatisfied, for the child would have never the ability nor the organism whereby to utilize a knowledge and do the work of a man, for it would not have reached man's estate. Perfection could not be obtained in one life. When a student is earnestly and sincerely seeking for light and is striving towards self-mastery, he frequently gets a strong impression that he has a special work to do. This is generally the first glimmering of a bona fide memory of past and of his soul destiny. It is frequently given in dreams, and perhaps it's remembered in the waking consciousness only as an intangible impression. Many wonder why they must grow so long in the dark. But here again, there is a reason. The soul must struggle toward the light alone, just as a plant by its struggles gains the strength to push up through the earth to the sunlight. One may be given the outline of the work, which he, both karmically and constitutionally, is destined to accomplish, but the exact manner of its fulfillment is always left to his own judgment. He is helped to think and use his own powers of judgment to decide wisely. He is shown the goal and the path, then is left to his own devices as to the best manner of following it. His judgment may be at fault. He may make mistakes, but if he is working in sincerity and love for his fellow man, the one guiding him must let him experiment. The masters dare not to interfere, for they know that strength and wisdom come from learning lessons. And if the pupil is doing the best he can, it will be but a matter of time. He will reach the end of his mistaken line of activity. If a memory of a past mistake is necessary, it will be given him. But if the exact step in his future work were mapped out for him, he would become a mere puppet, the executor of another's will, and not a free agent. Perhaps when the outline of this work is given him, the pupil makes the mistake of thinking that he is ready to begin at once. In reality, the command is to begin the work of preparation. Such a disciple is in the position of a child who heedlessly rushes off before he has heard what his father really desires, or he must prepare himself for the task. He hears the command, work, but does not wait for the end of the sentence. No one is ever required to do work for which he is not prepared. A teacher would not teach advanced subjects without special training. A physician would not prescribe without years of technical study. A man would not be placed in charge of a bank or a business concern without long years of special training for such work. And yet many a psychic who hears the cry, "Son, go to work today in my vineyard," never stops to hear more, nor dreams that any preparation is necessary. In fact, such usually take pride in their attitude of trust that they have no need of preparation or special knowledge, that their heavenly Father will guide and teach them in all things. While it is true that they will be guided and helped, yet there is an old axiom which says God helps him who helps himself, which being interpreted means that he who uses common sense and places himself in the current or trains his mind so it can receive and comprehend the higher truths, makes intelligent help a possibility. While he who depends entirely upon astral communications must make himself so negative that his mind is a fertile field for the sowing of tares by the enemy who is always waiting to sow them among the wheat while the husbandmen sleep. There is no royal road to divine wisdom. There is, however, a straight and narrow path to spiritual unfoldment. Sorry, guys. It is found only by wedding knowledge to understanding and love to wisdom. It must be trodden step by step, often in weariness and with bleeding feet. Even Jesus, although his mission was announced both at his birth and at his baptism, spent over 30 years studying with the teachers, adepts, and masters before his mind was capable of correlating the divine wisdom of which his soul was fully cognizant. While book learning is in no way necessary for spiritual development, yet it is necessary if one is to be a teacher of the higher laws and the higher philosophy, or is to be a leader in spiritual thought, to perfect the instrument brain through which the divine inspiration is seeking expression. The astral world is full of false teachers who promise many wonderful things and seek to gain your attention by telling you how great or how good you are. Hence, discrimination is the first faculty that must be perfected. It can only be gained by careful training and thorough understanding of the law. The astral plane is called the hall of learning, but the people is warned that in it thy soul will find the blossoms of life. But under every flower a serpent coiled. No purity of heart or desire for truth can protect from this serpent's sting those who willfully neglect to cultivate their minds and familiarize themselves with the laws of that plane. If a person has not the opportunity to carry on a study of the laws and philosophy of the higher life, this is proof positive that such an one is not yet ready to teach. He may be selected as a teacher, but for the time he is being prepared along a particular line for the training of the heart or the love nature, for obedience and for ardor and for love for humanity and the perfecting of patience by the cheerful performance of daily tasks, has first to be developed in the character. When the pupil is considered by the master to be a fit instrument in these respects, obedience, love, sympathy, patience, then will he be brought into an environment which will give him the opportunity to acquire a knowledge of the spiritual laws and the philosophy. The pupil is never asked to leave a plain duty undone to take up the work of a teacher, for just so long as a duty confronts him, which would prevent him from beginning the work, he should know that his preparation is not complete. Instead, by chafing at the confining bonds, he should cheerfully go ahead preparing himself in body, mind, and soul, remembering that he has all eternity before him, and that it is much easier to make up for delay than to rectify a vital mistake made through precipitation. When he perceives the outline of a work to be done, let him prepare himself to do it to the best of his ability. But let him be humble and be ready to see and acknowledge his shortcomings, but without exaggerating them, and the guiding hand will not let him stray far from the path. Pupils should therefore study most carefully the law of all spiritual unfoldment. Never does the higher self make a mere automation of a pupil, nor sow the seed of final failure by flattering him or by appeals to his ambition. On the contrary, his earliest memories are more apt to be of mistakes than of triumphs, and the first lesson given will be those which will inculcate humanity. His training is a process of guiding, overshadowing, and awakening of the dormant faculties. And once awakened, each faculty must be put to the most severe tests, or the pupil is ready to be used. Only thus can he raise his vibrations to the spiritual key note. Never is a pupil told to do this or do that blindly. He may be the victim of an arbitrary command or some entity who was taking advantage of his lack of training and discrimination to use him as a cat's paw. If so, he will find that obedience will lead him to violate common sense and bring him into all kinds of trouble. When such commands are received interiorly, the people must consider them with the gravest doubt and is perfectly justified in refusing to obey. For arbitrary commands are against the whole law of evolution and are therefore never given by the higher self or by the masters of the Great White Lodge. Absolute obedience to the higher guidance is required of all who would do the master's work, but such guidance never violates common sense, and even the vow of obedience is never required until the pupil, through repeated experiences, has learned to have implicit faith in his guidance. I think many of us are in those initiations now, as I am. Hi. FML is a big keyword. I'm trying not to, I'm definitely on some sort of new trajectory in life, and I have to have faith in the universe that sometime this month, before bills are owed, that I get some kind of clarity on my direction. Otherwise, you won't be seeing me much anymore because I will have to then once again move and figure out life, but I don't think I'd be coming back. Kind of over it. I love tests, love the universe, but I think my soul is tired. I've lived too much and I'm exhausted and I'm out of gas, to say the least. I'm having hopes and optimism with everything, but this hits. So I hope you guys enjoyed this section. I very much needed read. I don't know why Blavatsky got skipped today, but Spirit was like, nope, you're doing this. Cool. I will be live tomorrow. I don't know on the time yet, so just look out for social medias and make sure you are getting your little dingling pressed so that you know when I go live. And I go live Tuesdays and Fridays. Allergies are still a big thing. It rained like crazy last night, and here I am. So, sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, shielding, and protective energy. Please go within. Be the shoulder. Be the lighthouse. Be the lighthouse. Seed your truths. Light that path forward. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Thank you for your support, your abundance, your gratitude, your prayers, and your presence. Have a blessed and beautiful day, guys. Bye for now.